Meet the new Slender Man. This is SkyWatch TV for Monday, November 23rd, 2015. I'm Derek Gilbert. This is Laughing Jack, apparently responsible for the death of a 50-year-old woman in Indiana. Her 12-year-old stepdaughter is being held at a juvenile detention center in Elkhart. In July, she allegedly stabbed her stepmother to death and then set their apartment on fire. Why? To please Laughing Jack, who the girl claims told her to do it. This is disturbingly similar to the case of two 12-year-old girls in Wisconsin who last year attacked the mother of one of the girls to please Slender Man. The woman survived. The girls were tried as adults for attempted murder, convicted, and now could spend the next 65 years in prison. Like Slender Man, Laughing Jack is a crowdsourced monster, a meme, a creepypasta, sort of a cut-and-paste fictional creation of internet lore, digital folklore, in a sense. There are websites out there devoted to creating characters like this, where people will contribute stories, details, histories for these fictional characters, adding details, and eventually a character takes form. Sort of like the old-fashioned analog story that we used to tell as kids of Bloody Mary. Stare in the mirror, you could summon a demon, essentially, called Bloody Mary. Well, the court-appointed attorney for the girl in Indiana made her story public last week in an attempt to get her help. She's been diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder by 3 separate psychiatrists, what used to be called multiple personality disorder. Now, if you're familiar with the work of deliverance ministers such as Russ Dizdar, or the concept of satanic ritual abuse, the diagnosis of DID is probably no surprise to you. But the girl has been turned down for admittance by 16 psychiatric facilities. Now, this is speculation, but as with the girls in Wisconsin, it is possible that this girl heard from something. It raises a disturbing possibility. This is speculation again, but when thousands or perhaps even millions of people, users on the internet, focus on a particular entity, fictional creation, imagining the character's adventures, backstory, creating artwork, even talking to that character, is it possible that that character can, in fact, manifest in our reality? Well, Buddhists believe this is possible. They teach that an object or an entity can be conjured through sheer spiritual or mental discipline. It's called a tulpa. Think of it as wishing an imaginary friend to come to life. But again, this is speculation. Does this really happen? No, I don't think so. I think it's more likely that the girl was guided by a demon impersonating Laughing Jack. Is it possible that millions of users thinking about a particular entity can open a gateway to allow a demon through? That's possible too, but I think more likely that demons who've been with us since at least the New Testament era may just choose to impersonate a character like this in order to gain entry to the soul of someone who is vulnerable. You see, this is a disturbing trend. Besides this case and the attack in Wisconsin, a 14-year-old girl in Florida last fall set her house on fire with her mother and 9-year-old brother inside. A 13-year-old girl in Ohio last year tried to stab her mother. Both those cases linked to Slender Man, girls wanting to please the entity by sacrificing their parents. Slender Man is also linked to an epidemic of suicides at the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Now, I missed this story when it was first reported back in May. There were 103 suicide attempts, reportedly, by people between the ages of 12 and 24 at the Pine Ridge Reservation between December of 2014 and March of this year. 9 of those were successful. The population of the Pine Ridge Reservation, depending on who's making the estimate, is only between 14 and 40,000 people. The rate of suicide for youths, young adults, is off the charts. And at least one of those youths who died was influenced by Slender Man. A minister who works on the reservation said the kids call him the Tall Man Spirit. President of the Oglala Sioux tribe, John Yellowbird Steele, told the New York Times that many Native Americans traditionally believe in a suicide spirit similar to Slender Man. And he said that young people on the reservation this spring had been sharing videos back and forth through Facebook that encourage suicide. One video giving instructions on how to tie a hangman's noose, others directing youths to a specific location, telling them that they'd find ropes already there. A pastor interviewed by the New York Times, John Two Bulls, said that he was tipped off to a planned mass suicide in March at a wooded area outside the town of Pine Ridge. Found a row of trees there with ropes already hanging from the branches. Teens already gathering to take their own lives. Thankfully, he was able to call them together, talk to them, counsel them, and the ropes went unused that night. Now, these kids at Pine Ridge have problems that, frankly, I can't truly appreciate. I was raised in a home with two loving parents. It wasn't perfect, but Mom and Dad loved me and my sister, sacrificed their own wants and desires for our benefit. I'm sure my dad would rather have been spending his evenings playing softball or bowling instead of taking me to scout meetings or shuttling me back and forth for debate team and drama practice and things like that. According to the Times article, poverty, abuse, substance, physical, and sexual are not uncommon at the Pine Ridge Reservation, which contributes to a sense of hopelessness and despair that the enemy can use to access the spirits, the souls of these young people, and to destroy them. Government authorities have responded by assigning more mental health professionals to the reservation, but there are only half a dozen there for the 40,000 people on the reservation. But as with the young girl in Elkhart, Indiana, the two girls in Wisconsin, the girl in Florida, the girl in Ohio, it appears if they are being influenced by a spirit of some kind, tall man, slender man, laughing jack, whatever you want to call it, it is a spiritual issue and not a mental health issue. Pray for our children. This is not the only account of a rash of suicides here in recent years. Several years ago, there was a number of suicides that occurred and attempted suicides in an impoverished area of Wales in the United Kingdom. And again, typically, the victims hung themselves. What is going on? I don't fully understand yet, but I think looking at these stories without spiritual eyes misses the story completely. In other news, Vladimir Putin meets with Ayatollah Khamenei today in Tehran. This is Mr. Putin's first visit to Iran since 2007. Russia considering $7 billion in loans to Iran, as well as other issues they'll discuss related to oil and gas exports and military and technical cooperation. Iran is hosting the Gas Exporting Countries Forum today as it prepares for the lifting of economic sanctions next year, part of the nuclear deal agreed to by the United States and its Western allies. Early warnings of a slowdown in global trade prepare for an economic downturn. The Baltic Dry Index, which I've talked about in this program a few times before, hit record lows last week. It dropped below 500 for the first time ever. Now, the BDI is a measure of the cost of shipping bulk goods, raw materials used for industrial production or food production, things like coal, iron ore, bulk grain, things like that. It is considered a reliable leading indicator of economic activity. While manufacturing today might still be strong, if manufacturers expect a downturn, say, first quarter next year, they aren't ordering the raw materials needed for production today. At this time of year, over the last 30 years, the Baltic Dry Index has traditionally gone up as manufacturers and food producers prepare for a ramping up of production in the first quarter of the new year. This year, however, the rates for the Baltic Dry Index have essentially dropped off the cliff, which has investors and economists somewhat worried. Physicists proving that Albert Einstein was wrong after all. Two recent studies show that Einstein's spooky action at a distance is, in fact, real. Quantum entanglement, something that we've talked about with Josh Peck on this program, is the strange behavior predicted by quantum mechanics that two particles separated by astonishingly huge distances can instantly affect one another. The change in the state of one particle results in a change in the state of the other particle, no matter how far apart they are. Theoretically, they could be anywhere in the universe. Well, in a paper written in 1935, Albert Einstein and two colleagues created a thought experiment that showed what Einstein thought was the ridiculous implications of the Schrödinger wave equation, the idea that two subatomic particles located anywhere could instantly communicate with each other, ignoring the speed of light. Einstein argued that this was absurd and that some unknown variable must be affecting those particles. Well, unfortunately for Mr. Einstein, two new experiments show that what physicists have suspected all along is in fact correct. Einstein was wrong about this. The research has implications that range from creating super fast computers. Right now, the speed of computers is essentially limited by the speed at which an electrical signal can travel through the chips, the silicon chips. If we can somehow harness the power of quantum entanglement, computing could essentially become almost instantaneous. Also, could finally result in teleportation, a Star Trek type transporter beam. Still, very early days on this, but the implications as far as the the nature of creation are just mind-boggling. Well, this is kind of a short week, but a very important program this week on SkyWatchTV. There's a new book from a rather well-known teacher of Bible prophecy, Paul McGuire, and an award-winning investigative journalist, Troy Anderson. The new book is called The Babylon Code, and it is the topic of the discussion on SkyWatchTV tomorrow night. What role do secret societies play in helping bring the prophesied one world government and one world religion, Mystery Babylon, to fruition? The book is based on over 100 interviews with leading scholars of Bible prophecy and secret societies, and that discussion will air tomorrow night on the Christian television network. SkyWatch TV broadcasts at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 8:30 p.m. Central Time on DirecTV Channel 376, Dish Network Channel 267, the Glory Star Satellite Channel 117, and you'll be able to watch that later this week on the SkyWatch TV channels on Roku and YouTube. Registration is still ongoing for the 2016 Rocky Mountain International Prophecy Conference. Think about this. Wouldn't this make a wonderful gift for Christmas for someone you know who is really fascinated by Bible prophecy? Over 24 top scholars and speakers on the topics of geopolitics and prophecy gather together in Colorado Springs July 14th through the 17th of 2016 at the Marriott Pikes Peak. It's a beautiful setting and a wonderful gathering. Registration continues, but closing fast. It's more than 3/4 sold out now. You'll find out more, and you can register online at prophecywatchers.com. We welcome your comments, questions, and suggestions. Send those to me, dgilbert@skywatchtv.com. And remember, you can follow me online at all of these places, Twitter, Facebook, and my own website. And thank you for watching. As we keep watch, I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV.